Now in this video, what I'm going to do is discuss with you the secret plan to fire you. Sometimes managers could be deliberately targeting you, particularly in recent years when we see a lot of layoffs, and sometimes companies don't even want to give you a layoff. They just want to fire you because they don't want to give you a layoff package and a payment to leave the company. They just want to get rid of you. So what's important to do is to look out for these signs. So when they want you gone, your work tends to be judged more harshly, right? The perception of your work will be that it's worse than others. They'll look for any little detail to make sure that your work performance looks worse compared to other people. Everything tends to be tainted with a paintbrush of negativity, right? And all your general actions will be highly criticized. Now, how to outsmart your manager? That's what I'm going to give you some tips here of how to best to deal with this situation where you feel like you're being unfairly treated. The 5 tips I'm going to go through in this video would be how to understand how you're being perceived, build skills while you're at the company before you might leave or switch to another role in the company away from maybe a toxic team or manager, and how they hide important information about the company or the team or the work just to put you in a disadvantageous situation, and also how you might need to question the double standard if you're being harshly critiqued and you can see other people aren't getting that critique, how to deal with that, and then also observing the general social dynamics on a team so you can leverage that to benefit yourself. So the first thing is around understanding how you're being perceived. Sometimes if you're just quiet in the office, they might say, oh, well, you're being unprofessional. And what you might be doing, you're quiet, you're careful what you say, you might be naturally an introvert, you might be behaving in a formal way, and they say, well, you're coming across as you're detached from the work, you're not invested in actually doing the work tasks. Also, you come across as maybe overconfident, you're not willing to socialize with co-workers, and these are the things you might be unfairly judged on based on things that you aren't actually doing wrong. It's just their perception, and in the corporate world often perception is reality. So if they just judge you for a particular way, it's very difficult to control that unless you start being fake, even if you don't want to be fake, and start being overly fake, nice and friendly, and talking more in the office, even if that's not your personality, right? And the thing is, they don't tend to judge others by the same way they're judging you, right? So others who might be quiet, they'll be given some grace. They'll just say they're a bit more modest or they have more humility or something, but they're not going to describe you that way. Sometimes they end up judging you twice as hard for the same behavior as another employee. Another thing could be maybe you're just generally funny. You're trying to be funny and friendly, and then they might say, oh, that's unprofessional, or just not laugh at your jokes, create an awkward silence, or give you like an awkward look. What are you trying to say? But when other employees are being funny, they'll be friendly, they're engaged in the banter and the jokes. So these are the things. Just look up for these signs, how you're being perceived. If they're deliberately looking at you, you just don't fit in and they don't really like you. And as you can see at this image, that's how things tend to work in the office. Sometimes you'll see 2 gossiping co-workers. They need someone to talk down on, and it could be you just minding your business, doing your job, being quiet in the background, and they're finding something negative to say about you, which is just typical in the office with these type of bitchy, gossipy co-workers. Now, the other thing is looking to build your skills and use the company while you're there, right? As you can see by this image, it's just an image of someone working, they're keeping a positive state of mind. And sometimes that's what you got to do, right? If you're at a company and you're like, oh, I can tell I don't fit in here, they don't really like me, maybe I could move to another team in the department or another department, or just spend a couple years here, move to another company. So you just got to go Joker mode, right? The movie Joker, I'm sure you're familiar with Joker from the Batman movies and things. He just sees everything as a bit of a joke and not takes it seriously. Now, of course, you're doing your job, you want to do a decent job, but if you can tell co-workers don't like you, you should just have a strong sense of your own identity and your life outside of work, maybe people you do get on well with outside of work, and maybe your general life identity, whatever you'd identify with, your race, your religion, your hobbies and things like that. And you go to work and you do your job and just don't take how they perceive you too seriously. You can figure out in a couple of years, either I'll leave the company while I get the experience for 2 to 3 years and then job hop to another job, or I'll get a layoff and I get paid to leave. So I've been in situations like that. I've worked with my clients who've been in situations like that. So it's worthwhile considering if things aren't working out, just use the company and build your skills. That's what I mean here, right? So if they're going to magnify your mistakes and every small thing you do, they're saying, oh, it's a big deal and you've made a terrible big mistake, even though other people, they wouldn't judge them that harshly, you should just gloss over it and be like, oh, I'm doing my best, and you learn from it and keep it moving. But don't get emotionally invested in all their little negative comments. And then you might be doing a successful work project and you do a massive piece of work and they say, oh, it's not a big deal, while other employees do a little small good thing and they blow it out of proportion to give them positive performance reviews and positive feedback to even more senior management, and you're doing big projects and you're just getting overlooked, right? This is the type of way they might use you, but you can get involved on those as good projects as you can get, to benefit your resume and your CV and your experience when you make it to the next job. For example, I remember working for some major investment banks. If you're new to the channel, I've worked at Goldman, Morgan Stanley in sales and trading, investment banking type of roles. And without naming the specific banks, but there were a couple of them where I got heavily invested in crypto projects. Now, sometimes because crypto goes through waves of highs, market lows, and then they don't want to invest. So we go through these projects that we work on for several months and it never goes anywhere. But I got that experience and I can leverage that to future opportunities if I was going to work for maybe a up and coming crypto firm from a self-employment perspective as a contract worker. But I have those skills. So even though one or two of those instances, some of the co-workers didn't like me or they just had a bad attitude with everyone and they were kind of negative in general, I didn't really mind it. I'm just like, I'm getting this experience. I'll put up with this annoying co-worker I had, one of these guys at one of those companies, and I just kept it moving, and it benefited me to get the next job and to move forward and leverage that experience in future job roles. Now, the other thing is when it comes to bonuses and pay rises, if you notice your bonuses and pay rises start slowing down and you're not getting promoted, of course, just leverage whatever experience you can until you leave. Build the skills, add it to your resume, and then before you leave, you've got some solid value you've extracted from the company. It could even be things like getting them to pay for your professional qualifications. Some banks are small, for example, in the finance industry, and I've had interviews at some of the smaller banks too, like a European investment banks, and they might not have the biggest brand names, and you might not know them if you're not in the industry, but what they do to attract employees, particularly at the mid-level or junior level, is they pay for your professional qualifications. In some cases, if you're doing a master's, if you're doing a professional diploma, coding boot camp, things like that, they'll pay for that because that's how they attract employees there from the bigger banks. So you've got to look at little loopholes there. So maybe you're not too happy at a company and you think, well, I wanted to complete this project management certification, and then you just, obviously you don't tell them you're not happy there, but just be like, oh, well, it cost about a couple of grand, for example. Let me just discuss it with the training team there, my manager, and play along with this work I don't really like, but they're going to pay for my qualification. And typically how it works with major companies is they'll pay for your qualification as long as you continue to work there for a year more, and then you can leave, right? You can't complete a qualification, they pay 5 grand for it, and then you leave immediately. Typically they'll pay for it as long as you stay at the company for another year. Otherwise you'll be expected to pay it back when you leave. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, but either way, that the point remains is you can leverage something from the company to benefit you, building skills, having them pay for your qualifications, things like that. The whole point is when it gets really bad and you've built your skills and you're looking to leave, that's when you can flick a switch and start quiet quitting, which is putting in less effort until they give you a layoff or you find your next job. All you're doing on your way out is stacking your skills for your next opportunity, right? If you think it's not going to work out, all it takes is a little bit of extra effort, focusing on what skills you want to build and moving on to the next opportunity, putting in less effort and quiet quitting. So if you're new to the channel, like I said, I've been working at some of these investment banks in the past, over a decade of experience working at top corporations. And I have 3 solutions for you. I've been working with my clients for a while now, and there are 3 key things that come up. How to accelerate your career through securing job promotions quicker so you can get pay rises and make it to the next level. How you can find your next job, which would be the career booster here. And then lastly, dealing with office politics. Now, if you click the link in description, you can see these top 3 options here, right? Securing promotions faster, landing your dream career, and mastering office politics. And I cover all 3 of them. The first 2 are coaching programs. The last is a course you could do at your own pace. So feel free to click those links, the link in description, navigate through this, and I can help you in one of those 3 main ways. You can book a call with me and we can move forward with coaching, or you can get started with the course. And lastly, I have this mailbox money newsletter. Many of people who watch my videos, you often ask for, oh, can we get some summary of this, like PDF in an email format? Can you send it to us? And I tend to summarize some of this content in emails. So if you just click this little button here, mailbox money, you'll be taken to this particular page. You can click on this, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get these type of feedback and this type of comments and advice that I provide here. So let's continue with these videos. I hide important information, right? That's what they tend to do, really. They tend to hide important information in a very crazy way. Sometimes you're doing a work project and it's with 3 other people and 2 of them have more information than you, and they're not sharing it with you because they want to look better in front of management and management meetings and not say it to you, so you're caught blindsided, or they tell you things at the last minute. This is very common to do. Even when people are leaving a company or they're doing handover before they go on a holiday, they're giving you some work, they only give you some of the information because they don't want you to look too good in front of management, or that they're not needed. They deliberately give a very bad handover of work tasks because they want to give the impression they're needed at the company and someone can't easily replace them while they go on maternity leave or a vacation. This type of underhanded, weird tactics that they do. So it could be things like constructive feedback, right? You're asking questions to maybe other team members. They're ignoring your questions, not helping you, not giving you feedback to improve throughout the year. Sometimes what they do is they let your performance get worse. And there's a rule in the Art of War, if you're familiar with Sun Tzu in the Art of War, never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake. So that's what co-workers do. They might see you as an enemy, they might not say that, but when you're making a mistake, they're not going to correct you, they're not going to show you the right way, they're not going to say this is how you should actually deal with the situation versus what you're being told of how to deal with it. So an example could be you're saying something incorrectly in a meeting, they're not going to correct you, you're planning a project, they're going to leave in a few mistakes that you weren't aware of, and then they can speak up in a meeting with senior management and say, oh, you missed this, you missed that, things like that. These are the type of underhanded tactics they tend to use. So they could be, like I say, ignoring your questions, not giving you relevant feedback, or they can withhold any negative feedback that could help you improve throughout the year. And then in your end of year performance review, they put this all in writing to make you look really bad, right? So all the little things you do, maybe sending one email a few days late because you're working on other projects, one small mistake in an email, putting too many bullet points in an email, whatever type of nonsense feedback, they tend to do it at the end of year in your performance review. So you don't get a pay rise, you don't get a bonus, and that feedback goes to very senior management. So you look particularly bad because they can read all the performance reviews in their performance review systems. So it could be other things that are important for you to know. For example, upcoming team changes, department changes, maybe new team members joining, changes of management, people leaving the team, or crucial team members that you need maybe for help or assistance on projects. They tell you at the last minute this is going to change. You're the last to know. Any important rumors, not gossiping about people's personal lives, but maybe job cuts, things like that. And they don't share resources with you. Other people might get special training. They might be invited to industry events, company funded qualifications, things like that. And those things aren't offered to you, right? A thing could be, oh, we're going to, because of DEI, just as an example, oh, we're going to give certain demographics funding to do additional professional qualifications, and then you don't get that. These are the type of things they might see you as a threat. So they try to rug pull you, which is pulling the rug from up under you. You might see that in crypto when the price drops of a major cryptocurrency, or they put you on the back burner. You're meant to be ignored to prevent your success, and they aim to deliberately put you in a disadvantaged situation, right? So you can do the same with them, right? In the sense that develop your skills, gather information on company changes, keep those to yourself, use that to benefit yourself, don't tell others, just use info that you gather, not just at the company, but maybe new skills you develop to benefit yourself, not to help them. And then speak up in meetings in front of senior management so you improve the perception of yourself. Present everything as your analysis. And people play this game all the time, not sharing information they know with others when it's convenient to them, giving people incorrect advice to push them in the wrong direction in their career, things like that, right? Without naming names, there was someone I worked with who would often present a lot of detailed legal analysis as his own perspective and his expertise, but he was actually using a site online where he could essentially search for legal analysis on specific financial regulation and changes to trading activity and things like that. So it was already done for him. He just had to read it and maybe summarize it, but he was presenting it always as his opinion, and he's the expert in this particular area, but he really wasn't, right? He was just taking from this website, but he wasn't discussing that was his source. I kind of figured it out because he was sitting next to me and he was reading this website all the time. I checked it myself, and it was like nothing he was saying was actually original content or real detailed analysis. It was just copied from that site. So these are the type of things they're not going to tell others, and that really did help his perception in the office, and until everyone else figured out he was using this one website. So the thing is, ask questions from others, do your own research, DYOR, if you're familiar with that acronym, to become a subject matter expert, and don't let people exploit you. Now, they can take it really far, hiding important information. As you can see from this image here, you might be in a building and working in the office, and there's an armed shooter in the office, and they want to hide that important information from you. They're saving their lives, and you're wandering the aisles of the office and there's an armed shooter, but they don't want to tell you because they have no problem you sacrificing your career or even your life while it benefits them. So be careful of co-workers who are hiding important information. Next up, we have lesson number 4. So sometimes you need to question the double standard. If things really go far and they're really putting you in a bad situation where it's such an obvious double standard, you might need to point this out. It could be small things. Typically, you would go to work and dress as professionally as you can, but they might want to nitpick, right? It could be you go to work and it's business or business casual, and sometimes there's grey areas in dress codes. People wear sneakers on a Friday. Sometimes you have co-workers who might be wearing a suit and then wear sneakers just because it's more comfortable. Women change what shoes they want to wear. No one really questions what women are wearing because that's inappropriate, even when sometimes they're wearing yoga pants on the trading floor of a major sales and trading division. No one's questioning anything women do, really. But little things they could, if they want to fire you, they'll fire you and pick these little things. Oh, it's a policy violation. You're wearing unprofessional shoes. It doesn't fit with our dress code. Send you to a disciplinary if they're really looking for a reason to get rid of you, right? And it's kind of funny because I remember on Friday at a major investment bank I worked at, they would have casual Friday, so you can wear what you want. But I would just still wear my shirt and wear the formal office work clothes, dress shoes, dress trousers, things like that. So, because I didn't want them comments. So people always like to pass comments in the office, right? And obviously they have to fit their particular aesthetic, which in that particular investment bank, he was more focused on the European aesthetic. So if you're wearing clothes that wouldn't fit in with their particular style and make little cheap shot comments, it's completely ridiculous, right? And like I say, there's too many double standards. So sometimes if there are massive double standards, I remember co-workers coming into work wearing denim jackets and things like that, wearing tie-dye shirts because they were going to a fancy dress party straight after work. There's no accountability, and if there's obvious transgressions where you're being mistreated compared to others, or they're nitpicking your shoes and you're wearing sneakers on a Friday, you should just point out those things and just nip it in the bud when they start to build like these little petty narratives against you that are quite negative for no reason. And it's interesting because it's a double-edged sword, because when you are being serious at work and you are looking at to getting the work done, sometimes you can be accused, on the other hand, of being too serious at work. Oh, you need to be more casual with the way you dress and things like that. You need to let your hair down and relax on a Friday. But you got to be careful with these games. Sometimes they're lulling you into a false sense of confidence. Then you've got unfair performance reviews, which you might need to point out, right? Others might be underperforming in their work and it's considered okay. They get extra help, advice and training. You tend to not get these things. So observe how these situations are handled. If you're being judged too harshly, you should ask why and defend yourself. When employees tend to make mistakes, should they be punished equally or given a fair chance to improve? These are the type of questions you should ask. For example, you should say, I did A, but you gave me B punishment, but this co-worker did C, and why did they get D punishment? So maybe you made one small mistake and they put it in your end of year performance review. A co-worker made 5 mistakes that you saw on emails and nothing happened to them, right? These are the type of situations when it's reaching the end of your patience with dealing with a particular company, where you need to point out those things, because otherwise they'll cook up a narrative that you're the worst performing employee. They need to get rid of you immediately. And there's all sorts of things you can note, right? If you're 5 minutes late for work and they make a big deal of it, and a co-worker is always starting work 10 minutes late because they get to go to the work gym and do their workout, and you're like, well, this co-worker's always late to the desk. I was late one time 5 minutes, and you're giving me a disciplinary, and I keep track of when people are arriving at the office because I see it because they sit on my row of desks. And this is a double standard thing. I remember completely ridiculous things where a manager at a team at one company and a co-worker who was at another financial data analytics company that I worked at. What they would do is take 2-hour breaks in the middle of the day. Some of them would take 2-hour breaks at lunch to go to the gym, or start work 2 hours late to go to the gym. And one of them was quite senior, one of them was at mid-level, and they would just do whatever they want. Of course, they'd get their work done, but there's so many weird double standards that you'd see that are completely ridiculous, right? And this one, I'll give you another example of that about being professional. I would always obviously go to the trading floor and work in a professional way. And I had a co-worker who was a vice president at the time, and he would actually be brushing his teeth in the office after lunch or just before he goes out in the evening. He had a toothbrush in his mouth brushing his teeth, and he was outside of the restroom. And I just remember seeing, this is ridiculous, right? No one's going to judge him for that. There's so many weird double standards you'd see where you have to be professional, say the right thing, do the right thing, can't have the wrong opinion, and then someone's brushing their teeth on the $1 billion trading floor. It's just completely ridiculous. Now, point number 5 is observing social dynamics and planning ahead, right? You need to consider instances where you might be treated like an outsider and you have no common interests with your co-workers, whereas other co-workers are all being treated as friendly and welcoming, where you might not get that treatment. You might be described as being too private, not being too social with co-workers, not speaking up in meetings, and then people tend to talk over you. Other co-workers who are quiet, they're encouraged to speak in meetings and not judged for their mistakes. You might be judged for eating your lunch alone, while other co-workers go for work lunch with their manager, work drinks after work to strategize and gossip to increase their power base at work. You might do work on a project, but other co-workers might get the credit for completing that project, even though they don't do too much work. Manager gives them more attention. They're working in a very passive way, not contributing a lot. They're focused on the social elements of work, and they tend to get more accelerated promotions, pay rises, things like that. And the manager might tell you, oh, you need to speak up in meetings more, even if you have nothing to say, just to be seen. You need to generate more ideas, put in more effort, be more proactive. They give you this type of generic critical feedback where it's very hard to kind of or be clear on what exactly you need to do, because sometimes it's like, do things even though there's not really an opportunity to do that, or just speak for the sake of speaking, even if it's unnecessary in meetings. So it's not clear how to achieve it. And then if you ask your manager, are other people getting this feedback, because they don't seem to be speaking too actively, and they'll say things, and I've dealt with this too, they say, oh, just focus on yourself, just focus on what we're telling you to do. And it's clear there's a double standard. They just don't want to address it. They just want to manufacture a narrative to perhaps remove you. So you should focus on obvious double standards and point that out if you think they're setting you up to fail. Now, observing the social dynamics is quite important, because if you understand, okay, this is a game I can't win, maybe I need to leave, because there's a point where playing those office politics reaches the final level of, okay, there's the ceiling to how far I can get here. Maybe they don't want me to make it to vice president. They don't want me to make it to director level. They just kind of here forever. I'm not really fitting in with co-workers. Maybe I should just look for my exit plan, right? So these are the type of things to look out for if they're kind of up to fail, or sometimes they're not setting you up to fail. They're setting you up to be average, to be mediocre, to not make progress, to end up stuck at a mid-level or lower mid-level, right? So you should observe the social dynamics and plan ahead in those instances. Question double standards if they're really pushing your boundaries and try to undermine you. If they're hiding important information from you, of course, you should look out for that so they don't set you up to fail or commit self-deletion in the sense of your career. And then you should look out for instances where you can build your skills and use the career and use the company the same way they're trying to use you to benefit yourself. And then understand how you're being perceived, right? How do you think co-workers are perceiving you? I know that can be a bit daunting. Sometimes it makes you a bit paranoid, like, how are they perceiving me? Who's watching me? What's their opinion of me? But you just need to do your best to kind of think through what will actually work for you, how you're being perceived, because otherwise, people are very lackluster in their performance because they lack self-awareness. That's very important in the office. Everyone's always watching each other. Everyone can always overhear each other, even if they're looking at their computer screen. So just bear in mind all of those things. The whole theater aspect, participating in productivity theater is very important in the corporate world. Pretending to be productive, pretending to be the well-dressed and well-spoken. That's what the office mostly is these days. Now, that's how you can outsmart them in the secret plan to fire you, those 5 points I covered here. Like I say, I cover these type of content and advice in my mailing list, link in description if you want to click on that. And then there's another 3 links when it comes to boosting your career, accelerating your career with promotions, finding you a job, and helping you deal with office politics. So those 3 things I can help with. Link in the description if you want to look into that. Let me know in the comments, how have you dealt with situations where you think they're setting you up to fail, and I'll see you in the next video.